eyes on you, bro.
Good.
Give him a 3, 2, 1, go.
And welcome into the Purple Menace podcast presented by Duchess Hamburgers, the inaugural Purple Menace podcast. I'm Ryan Osborne, staff writer, purplemenace.com, with Billy Wessels, newly enshrined publisher of the site. Billy, how are you tonight?
Good, man. Good. I like Anointed. I was gonna go, or yeah, you like Enshrine. I like Anointed.
Golly, so
So many
high
different ways.
maintenance.
I know. I'm surprised you work for me still. But we are really happy to be here at lovely Duchess Hamburgers in Fort Worth, near the campus, the beautiful campus at TCU.
Yeah, we have so many fans out here. The debut event, not really, but we will be out here every Thursday. We want you to be a part of the conversation. Come out, give your questions, give your opinions, tweet us, Facebook us. We want this to be a pretty, interactive radio show podcast, and This will be posted. If you're listening to it now, it's posted hopefully on our website.
If you're listening to it now, it's already been posted.
Yeah, and if you're
Good to
listening to
know.
it now, that means there hasn't been too many technical difficulties. But Billy, let's get right into the TCU football team. We're less than 2 weeks, a little bit more than 2 weeks
about 2.5
away.
weeks.
2.5 weeks away from the August 31st season opener at AT&T Stadium. I almost said Cowboys Stadium.
The
LSU
Cowboy
Tigers.
Classic
Yeah,
at
LSU
AT&T
Tigers coming into Tarrant County. A big game for TCU Horned Frogs. Needless to say, probably one of the biggest games for them since the Rose Bowl in 2011. And if you've been following along this season so far, the offseason, who's going to be the quarterback? A lot of people think it's going to be Casey Paul Hall. He came back from rehab, back on the team. But Trevon Boykin is pushing. We could see a decision Saturday after their scrimmage. Patterson indicated that Wednesday's practice. But Billy, obviously, I think a lot of people think Casey Paul should be the starter. But what's your take on this whole competition that Patterson? He hasn't revealed anything lately.
Nothing but Google Earth picks, but I really do think that this competition is making the two quarterbacks better. Both of them are going to be much better because these last 3 weeks or so of tryouts, more or less, of Boykin rubbing off on Paul, making him a little better. Paul, maybe they're showing each other stuff. Maybe Paul obviously has the better arm motion, better maybe mechanics, if you will. But Boykin has a little bit of extra edge there. He's got the mobility threat that Paul's got a little bit of it, but Boykin is really a much more mobile quarterback. So I don't know if that's where you want to go for the LSU game. Do you want your best pocket passer in there? Do you want the guy who's a little bit more of a dual threat guy?
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot of options here, and I do think that no matter what you do, we're in a better shape for this game than we were, say, week 9 last season.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is going to elevate both of the guys' quarterbacks' games. I mean, Casey Paul, when you think about it, after Andy Dalton left, he was sort of, I don't want to say he was handed the job after that, but he didn't have much pushback for the job. And same as last season, Trevon Boykin wasn't in a position where he was able to really contend for the starting job. Now with Paul leaving the program, coming back, Boykin somewhat established himself into that starting role. He struggled at times, he really did, but I think he made strides in the spring. He's obviously improved over the summer. Having Paul Hall not just walk into the starting job like he has the past 2 seasons, I think that's going to fine-tune his game, really refine it to the point where we could see it elevated, and I think they already have a clear advantage over LSU in the quarterback department. Don't overlook Zach Mettenberger, but let's be honest, Casey Paul Hall is, he's probably the best quarterback in the Big 12, and he's better than Mettenberger. I mean, that's just there's no way around that. But you're right. I think this quarterback race has elevated game, but has it gone on too long? Do you think there needed to be some more stability earlier than we've seen so far?
I don't think it's really gone on too long. If I was Patterson, I wouldn't even make an announcement this weekend. I'd wait another week or so. Let the guys still work each other. And also, that's more time LSU has to worry about both guys. The more time they have to worry about both guys, the less time they can focus on just one guy.
I agree.
So if I were Patterson, I would hold this out till at least a week before, if not even less. I would hold out a little bit longer and really let the two guys know, hey, we're fighting. We're not sure yet. We love you both. We think you both are strong. We feel like we can win either way.
Yeah.
There's neither of you have quite beaten each other out yet. Let them go a little bit longer and get more timing down with the wide receivers. A couple of new faces there, wide out, and I think it's something that we need is really the guys getting more focused on it and really driving towards that opening night game.
Trevon Boykin is a sophomore. He'll have 3 years left of eligibility. And if he doesn't start this year, you have to open the door to the possibility that Tyler Matthews, who's a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, could win the job next season. But you also want to utilize what Trevon Boykin brings to the table. He's very athletic. He had some issues last season, but he does have a strong arm, and he's athletic. He's fast. He's more mobile than Paul Hall. How do you see Gary Patterson using these two guys? I don't think he's really a fan of the two quarterback system per se, but how often do you see him using Boykin, and how do you think TCU will use Boykin in the offense?
And I tell you what, I really do think Boykin is going to get some run regardless of what happens. If I were Patterson, I'd be starting Paul, obviously, but I think you got such a good weapon there with Boykin. You can get him in so many different ways. You can set him up at running back. You can set him up at quarterback. It wouldn't surprise me if they tried something weird where they line him up at wide receiver. Maybe he reverses to the backfield, picks up the little handoff, and chunks it deep to Carter. We saw similar plays like that all last season, trick plays.
Yeah, I do think there's a chance that be like sort of a third running back. They have three running backs, but third running back in the sense of being the wild frog guy, taking a direct snap. I think that could be, that could that could add a wrinkle into this offense, and they like doing that. We saw that with Matt Brown in 2011. We didn't see it much last season with Brown, but they've shown that they are willing to really open things up in that spread option offense, which is pretty conducive to a second quarterback running back hybrid type of guy.
Oh yeah, that's something that you really want, especially this day and age. You see like the Mike Vicks, you see the Geno Smiths. These guys have come in and been successful, and they're really trying to changing the game of football. You look at what Chip Kelly did with Oregon. I mean, he's got a mobile quarterback and kind of an explosive offense there, obviously. So the more weapons you have, clearly the better off you're going to be. And TCU's trying to have an SEC defense with a Big 12 offense. Big 12 is known for their offenses, so they need someone who can keep up with that. And I really do think there's room for both quarterbacks, but you do want to have a clear number one guy. You want to have one guy getting at least 90% of the snaps.
Yeah, the biggest question I think right now is not who's going to be the quarterback or how they're going to perform, but who's going to be protecting him. The offensive line has been depleted with depth. Really, the last two seasons, they were very young last season. Avion Collins and Halapoulivaati Vaitai. I get it right every time. I will not resort to Patterson's use of Big V. I'm going to call him by his real name. But he was young last season. I think he made some strides over the offseason. I think he needed to. But you lose your best offensive lineman in Teo Fabulage, another hard name to say, but I mastered it once again. He's going back to BYU. That situation obviously didn't end up the way TCU would have liked to see it. But I think you bring in Lloyd Tunstill, a JUCO guard. You bring in Patrick Morris, a freshman who's working at center and guard. But who's really going to have to step up at offensive tackle? I guess across the offensive line at all positions. Patterson's making it sound like it's almost going to be a by committee. But how big of a problem is this going to be for TCU, despite having Casey Paul Hall back?
Well, clearly it's a big issue. You look at teams. If teams are successful, no matter what age of football you're at, if the quarterback can't stand up and throw, you've got no offense. You can't do anything. You can't run the ball. Clearly, they're not making lanes for you. So clearly, the offensive line is arguably the most underappreciated position in all of athletics, especially football. But yeah, for this year, for guys to step up, you're looking at guys like James Dunbar, who's going to be a senior, but he's had some issues last year in the classroom, and he's getting looked at guard and tackle this year. Who knows what he's got there? But you got Avion Collins and Halapoulivaati Vaitai.
Halapoulivaati Vaitai.
You want to spell that? You spell it right.
Halapoulivaiti.
You forgot a space in there, so people are just assuming that's his whole name.
That's how I say
it. If that were his Twitter name, he'd be at Halapoulivaati Vaitai.
I think that's too many characters.
That would take up almost all of his characters for Twitter.
For a tweet, not just his name.
Right. But I think you're going to see a guy like Matt Pryor is going to step in and play right away. Easton Permine's getting a little work. I think you can probably wait a little bit on him. But I'm really excited to see what Matt Pryor can do. That is a massive human being.
A lot of upside there at 6'7", 350 pounds. I think that's two of me. Gary Patterson thinks it's two of him. I don't know about that. But that's a big kid. The guy that you mentioned, though, James Dunbar, this kid has all Big 12 potential, but he was kicked off the team last season due to academic issues. He's kind of been a knucklehead, to be honest, the past few years. But he's a guy who seems like he's on the straight and narrow now, off the field, on the field. I think he's really stepping into more of the role they expected of him last season, and more of a role they're really going to need him this year. He's a guy that can anchor either the left or the right side of the offensive line at tackle, and he's even working at guard some too. Lloyd Tunstill's another guy, massive interior lineman. I think he checked in at 330 pounds on his visit in February. He's trimmed down some. But that is a guy who is Big 12 ready physically, who needs to come in and really step in and provide something on the interior line.
I thought Tunstall was a really sneaky guy that got it at signing day.
He really was.
He kind of snuck it under the radar, like, look, who's this Lloyd Tunstall guy? They just kind of pulled out of their hat, and I think he's going to be a big addition. He's definitely going to come in and play right away. He's got
330 pounds out of the hat right there.
well, yeah, that's a big old hat. It's a big old hat he's got there. But so I think that's the guy you're going to see step up in a big way. I mean, Eric Tosh has got to prove he's a leader. He's the man.
Yeah, I mean, he could be. He's probably going to be the starting center, I would think, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
Joey Hunt, either him or
you
Joey
trust
Hunt,
him?
and we will probably see that rotating some. And Patrick Morris, Gary Patterson said yesterday he's a fighter. He's been high on him since they brought him in last spring. And I mean, what do you see? I mean, is it tough? I mean, they threw true freshmen in there last season, but if Patterson likes this guy, I mean, I guess you got to go with what you have.
Yeah.
But
He proved if he proved anything last year is that he's not afraid to throw freshmen out there and let them learn under fire and let them really turn into all Big 12 guys and let them grow and shine. I really do think there's enough talent here to be successful. It's just a matter of them grasping it early enough and often enough to really be a productive offensive unit.
16 freshmen played last season. I think that was tops across the nation. This season at linebacker, that's another depleted part of this TCU program, and they've been thin on there ever since the departure of guys like Darrell Washington, Tank Carter,
David
Hawthorne, another guy,
Jason Phillips. Bunch of NFL names right there.
Yeah, and they're not here anymore, and they struggled with that last season. Marcus Mallett, who I think a lot of people didn't even really see him. I think that he surprised a lot of people by starting last season, but he was probably their best linebacker. They lose their leading tackler, Joe Hasley. He decided football, it was enough for him, so he's off the team. Right now, it's by committee. It's sort of like offensive line. Paul Dawson was in the doghouse all of last season. I think he's kind of out of that doghouse right now, but I think he's starting to. They really need him to take a huge step up to provide what they need at that position. So it's Paul Dawson, Marcus Mallett, and then Sammy Douglas and Paul Whitmill. Some freshmen.
You're forgetting the big name here. You're forgetting Jonathan Anderson.
Of course, that's the X factor. I don't know much about.
That's the X factor.
Yeah, we don't know much about him at that position.
He's got the athleticism to be the guy, to be the next NFL linebacker TCU produces. It's just a matter of if he can do it, if he can get his head together, if he can put it all the attributes together and really become that guy they think he can be. And if he can, this defense is going to be very scary. It's already going to be very scary. It's going to be insane if he turns it all in.
Yeah, Jonathan Anderson is what, 6'2", 225
Yeah.
pounds. Probably runs somewhere in a 4.7. I mean, this is a kid who is athletic enough.
What's up, man?
To
doing good.
Hey,
say hi to the Purple Menace podcast. Hey, come back. All right,
no.
see you later. Tell them what you love the Purple Menace podcast.
I mean, I just love everything purple, man. I mean, this is what we do here. Hard Frog Love, all day, every day.
There you go. Love it. Fans. Thanks, man.
All the fans coming out here in the back patio of Dutch's Hamburgers. Best burger in Fort Worth, I'll say it right now. Our wonderful sponsors, the University Drive. Now back to our discussion on linebackers.
I love it. I love that about this podcast.
Yeah, that's what we want.
We're sitting in the corner outside of Dutch's. We want people to come by. We're going to have some people come downstairs in a second. I want to get their take on the LSU game, maybe.
Exactly.
We'll see how it goes. But back to the linebacker, the key question here. Yeah, Jonathan Anderson thinks he's a big guy. The couple freshmen, he seems to be really high on Paul Whitmill. The couple of times I talked to him, or Sammy Douglas. I mean, they're both good options.
I think they both kind of hit a wall this week in practice.
Yeah.
That's what he said. But they've really progressed, Sammy Douglas and Paul Whitmill. I think those are two guys that they're probably going to need an impact from this year.
Yeah, and it seems like they're both going to be playing. When you bring in two linebackers, maybe you can think about redshirting one of them. I don't think he's going to redshirt either of these guys. I think they're both going to be playing a lot, at least on special teams, and maybe contributing more in the starting role. I do think I think Sammy Douglas' sheer athleticism is going to be something that's going to be tough to contain. I'm worried about Paul Whitmill's size a little bit. He might be a little small, but again, we've proven before that undersized linebackers can still perform at a high level.
I'd say he's probably somewhere around 200, 205, which, in college football today, that's the size of your linebackers. You're not going to get these guys that are 240 pounds unless you're Alabama. Of course, you win national championships with that. But one position TCU isn't quite depleted on is wide receiver. They lost Josh Boyce. That was a big loss from a leadership standpoint, from a production standpoint. But they returned guys like Brandon Carter, Cam White, Ladarius Brown. Brandon Carter this week apparently banged up his hand, injured his hand. We're not quite sure what happened with that, but he's going to, he missed the rest of this week's practice. Should be back by Tuesday. And Gary Patterson reiterated yesterday or Wednesday at practice that he's not going to miss the LSU game. I think some people heard some rumors, some panic spread. He seems good to go. I think they're really being precautionary at this point.
Yeah, it's still early in the season, so you don't want to ruin your whole season for a couple weeks of practice here. You want to sit them down for a little bit as possible. But yeah, so many weapons at wide receiver. I think I think if Baja's the starter, he's gonna have so many weapons. I mean, and Boykin too. Whoever the quarterback's gonna be, is gonna have so many options here at wide receiver with a healthy Brandon Carter, with Ladarius Brown, the pride of Waxahachie, Texas. Uh, between me and
Waxahachie.
Ladarius Brown, a lot of Waxahachie pride there. And then you got Jawan Story, the transfer from Florida. And you said Cam White. We've got Colby Listenby, who's really turned out to be, I think, Trevon
Had a
Boykin's.
big catch in the bowl game.
Yeah.
He's really starting to. I think he started to turn a corner at the end of last season. Listenby, that is.
Yeah, Listenby, and he really, according to what Patterson was saying, he's been Boykin's go-to guy in the camp and in some of the scrimmages. So I think you can see him progress in a big way. Josh Dotson, the transfer from Wyoming, is a local kid.
Big kid, 6'4".
Yeah, he had one touchdown catch. It's funny, it was at Amon Carter Stadium when he was with Wyoming against TCU. But it's funny how he's coming back to town. And I think the real X factor here you're gonna see wide receiver is your boy Ty Slania.
Gary Patterson has referred to the freshman Ty Slanina as Ty Selenian, but I can assure you it's Ty Slanina. And he's a guy who is working with the ones. He's working in the huddle, as Patterson says. I'm assuming that's Carter, Slanina, and Ladarius Brown. Brown and Slanina have been two guys that have really stepped up this in camp. And Ty, we talked to him several times last season, covering the recruiting, covering this kid. He was one of the fastest kids in the state of Texas, and he's also 6 foot tall. He's probably 6 foot, 205. He's a big kid. He's not your. I mean, a lot of guys like Sky Dawson, for instance, he was a speedy kid, but he wasn't. Didn't really have the physical size. Ty Slanina, I think he'll probably be in the slot, but he can move outside. Or he could even. He has the ability to move around, across the field.
He's the exact same size as Brandon Carter. I think Carter's got like 2 more pounds on him or something like that. And Carter's got the ability to play outside too. But I think Carter would be better fit inside. Where Slanina, I think, will just crush defenses. You get him maxed up with a linebacker.
Yeah,
it's done. He'll be wide open over the middle all night.
Yeah, and some other freshmen stepping up, and we'll probably see several freshmen until TCU really builds back that depth after they've had kind of an abnormal period of attrition the past 2 years. I don't know how abnormal it is, but they've had it. They've lost a lot of guys. Until they build that depth up, we're going to keep seeing younger guys, freshmen and sophomores, play. And 2 guys in the secondary. Patterson is, he's complimented several times this fall is Anthony Tejada and Sidney Calvin, both teammates at Frisco Centennial last season, both defensive backs. Tejada apparently almost returned 2 punts for a touchdown and a kickoff in the scrimmage on Tuesday. He's been a guy that has played well at cornerback. He's going to give you a lot in the return game. How valuable is it to really add depth at cornerback, which they probably have the best secondary in the Big 12 already?
I think the big thing is going to be Tejada. My favorite thing about Tejada is he's been bleeding purple for like 3 years. If you looked at his Twitter for the last year or so, it's like, can't wait till TCU's going to offer me. And they offer me, I'm going to commit. They offer him. He commits. He's a man of his word. He was at so many games last year. He was wearing a weird New Orleans Hornet hat at one game last year. It was all purpled out. Yeah, he snapback. I think he's gonna be a big addition to this class clearly, and he's one of those guys you can eventually build a defense around. And when I saw we got Sidney Calvin too, I really think Tejada had a big play in that.
Yeah.
Obviously good buddies. They shut down that secondary Centennial. They went to the state quarterfinals I think last year.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys just shutting down shutting down offenses, and I think. And I was like, man, Calvin, I don't believe him as much as Tejada, but from what I've heard the last couple weeks, man, I tell you what, they've both made a lot of progress, and both are going to be big factors this year, I think.
Yeah, on the flip side of what you said with Tejada, he got an offer last summer. He committed, but Sidney Calvin is a kid who is a very late bloomer. I don't even think he started the first 3 games of the season, and he's about 6 foot tall, pushing 6'1". I think he's a big physical kid, and he had to wait for that offer. He had a couple offers on the table. I think it was Tulsa and Wake Forest, both good programs, but TCU was a team that he really had to be patient for. He got the offer, and a week later he committed just close to signing day. So he's a kid who, like you said, he really wanted to be here, like Tejada, and you have 2 teammates like that who already have the chemistry. These are 2 guys that could be very active on the playing field for the next 4 years. Plus, what are some other freshmen you see stepping up from this class? Maybe it's a redshirt freshman.
Well, first let me go back to those DBs real quick. I think a big plus for them may be getting to work with Jason Verrett. That could be another reason they wanted to come here so bad. Verrett has been All-American by every magazine you look at, SI, Dave Campbell's, ESPN, whatever. Everyone has him as one of the top 5 DBs in the nation. I've seen him projected to be a first-round pick in the draft. I think these guys see what he's done and see how he's progressed, being a relatively unknown. He was a 2-star guy coming out of high school?
As a wide receiver, went to junior college and then flipped over to the cornerback. Now he's an All-American.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out. So I see these guys maybe see that Verrett story and like, man, I can do that. I can really become that next guy. But yeah, other freshmen I see stepping up. So many guys here. I mean, we talked about Matt Pryor a second ago. Ty Sonita, obviously big guys, and I'm blanking on George Baltimore. Maybe not right away. Denzel Johnson. Denzel Johnson, probably the most athletic guy we have.
He was a late bloomer too. They got him right before signing day, and Patterson has complimented him several times during the offseason. They could do a lot with him. He's probably going to. I think he's playing safety right now.
Yeah.
Strong safety.
Yeah, he looks like a 32-year-old. Like he's just such a beast. We saw him one open practice we had. I was like, who is that guy? And like, oh, that guy's a true freshman. Oh, Jesus, that guy's gonna be.
Gainesville, Texas. Everything.
Another guy. We touched a little on the defensive line earlier. Actually, we haven't touched about the defensive line at all. Tevin Lawson, I think, can be a big guy. He was LSU's to lose, and then they lost him. Then he came here, and I think maybe that motivates him to get on the field. I don't know if he's going to get on the field right away, but I'm not going to say he's not either. I think he's motivated by maybe seeing LSU early on and wants to prove a point there.
He's gotten reps. Him and Mike to weigh however you say. I can't say.
Oh,
his
you
name.
can't say
Sorry.
that one?
Sorry, guys.
That one's 5 letters long. You can't say that. You got Halapula Walavati. You got that on lockdown. Mike Tuway, you can't say.
I don't think it's Tuway.
I don't think it's Tuway either. I was hoping it was.
Patterson said it yesterday at practice. He corrected me, actually. But I'm not sure if he's the best person to be correcting people on names. But either way, Mike Tuway, the JUCO transfer from another California JUCO guy, him and Tevin Lawson have both gotten reps with the 1s and 2s at defensive tackle. And Tuway, we'll just go with that. He came in as a defensive end, but he's working in the 3 technique, as Patterson says, the defensive tackle position with Chucky Hunter. He had a stomach bug. Let's say it's a big stomach bug, but that was probably out of line. Either way, he's back in practice.
He ate some bad sushi last week or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, those guys. We're looking a little bit at the running back situation. Kyle Hicks is a big guy that TCU stole from Texas. Javoris Johnson's been really impressive too, I think.
Yeah, they are deep at running back.
Yeah.
Which they like to. Yeah, they've been like that for the past few years, except for last season.
Yeah, going into last season, Patterson said he had 3 NFL caliber running backs, and then he had 1 NFL caliber running back. Then he had 0 NFL caliber running backs.
Yeah.
So it's just funny how it all works out. But I really do think that recruiting class they brought in last year was big, and it's setting the tone for this recruiting class too a little bit. I think we're looking at a smaller class. You think we talked about this before?
I'd say 15 to 17, somewhere in that range. I think they obviously have room for a couple big name guys, but I think right now 15 to 16 is probably their target. But if they get a big receiver like Cameron Sims or someone like that, I think they definitely have room for them.
Oh yeah, no, they'll find room if that 5-star from Louisiana decides he wants to come over here.
Yeah, I mean,
they'll figure out a spot to put him at. But you're looking at what are we going to go to next? Talk about the recruits.
Well, yeah, I think
committed here.
Shifting into recruiting. I mean, what's been your overall take on this class? Zay Coven Henderson has been one of their top recruits. Ty Barrett, Jimmy Swain at linebacker. They're really obviously focusing on positions that they need this season. Maybe a couple of those guys could enroll quickly, but no, I think they. What's been your overall take on who they've been able to reel in so far?
I do think it's been very specific targeting, and it really does seem like they're going, oh, we need linebackers. Let's go get one of the best in the country. We need offensive linemen. We're going to go get big old Frank Key and Ty Barrett.
Frank Key is probably their most underrated commit so far. That kid is mammoth size.
He's 6'4", 345 allegedly, according to this. He's a star. I've talked to him so many times. He's such a good kid too. He's so hyped about getting here. TCU was on him coming out of high school too. He's a Mansfield product, and TCU wanted him, but he had some other issues and decided to go to JUCO for a year or two. And he's really pumped to get here next year. He's actually pumped to get here in January. I think he's planning on gray shirting. When you come in January and coming in.
I would assume so. Being a JUCO guy, I think they probably.
I don't know if it's called a gray shirt when you're a JUCO guy, but it's
I think he's
just
enrolling early.
Just enrolling early. You got those guys. Nick Orr is another guy I think is exciting. He's only a 2-star guy by our books. I think that might jump up a little bit. I've talked to him a bunch of times. He's a good kid, really pumped about this. And he comes from DeSoto, and DeSoto is such a good breeding ground for prospects. I mean, I was reading something, I think Bruce Feldman put this out about Dontre Wilson earlier this week. Wilson was the quarterback for DeSoto that led him almost to the state title game last year. So if maybe Nick Orr comes in and leads one of those couple of DeSoto guys in, they've got a 2016 quarterback who I'm really excited about, by the way. Down in Minnesota. I say I'm excited about him. I'm going to completely blank on his name. Thanks for putting me on the spot like that.
We're the best source for recruiting.
We really are. We really are. I will find it in a second because I wrote a big story on him. It's going to come to my name. I can't think of it. So let's talk about something else.
Moving on from that,
keep eating my words.
Tomorrow, which is Friday for us, whenever you're listening to this could already have gone down. But Uh, Another big target TCU has a linebacker, Dakota Allen, Humble Summer Creek High School, I believe. He's picking between TCU and Texas Tech, and it's been close. He also OU is somewhat in the picture, but I think it's down to the Red Raiders and the Horned Frogs. And I think both schools have to like their chances right now. And Texas Tech got Deshaun Johnson over TCU last week. He's a safety from Ennis, Texas. Where do you think TCU stands on the eve of Dakota Allen's announcement, which will be via Twitter? And he has a locked account, so send your request early in.
Yeah, you got to get that in now.
Yeah.
If you say now, you might have already committed by the time people listening to this. I've been on record for the last week or so saying I do think it's 80-20 TCU versus Tech. I do have a good feeling about him coming here. He sees the defenses that TCU's put out and sees the linebacker core. He sees the guy like Jimmy Swain coming in, and maybe he gets to work with that. I think that's something else that he's going to be excited about, and I think he does wind up wearing purple.
You asked me a week ago what I thought my chances are. I didn't say you did ask me. Hypothetically, if you were to ask me, if someone was trying to pick my wonderful brain of knowledge, that little of which I have, if you're going to ask me a week ago, my odds on Dakota Allen coming to TCU, I think I would have been somewhere around 80-22. I think I'm going to dial that back just a bit. I think TCU has an edge here from everything that I know, but I also think I would not be surprised if he did commit to Texas Tech, just because of the fact that he's said some pretty, he's said good things about both TCU and Texas Tech, and he told you a week ago that he had his mind made up. So maybe it's been TCU all along, maybe it's been Texas Tech. I think the obvious choice if you want to develop as a linebacker and make it in the NFL, TCU has a tremendous track record of doing that. But on the flip side, Texas Tech has had some momentum on the recruiting front.
Swag.
I mean, whether the old codgers, TCU fans like it or not, Cliff Kingsbury and his swag, that helps in recruiting. It really does. Same as
uniforms
help in recruiting.
They're popping
17-year-old
collars and popping pins to sign scholarships over there.
Yeah.
If that's not the new slogan, it really should be.
Yeah, I mean, 17-year-old kids like that stuff, and I can't blame him. I mean, and if he feels comfortable there, then it's sometimes hard for a 17-year-old kid to look too far back into a program's past, and and sometimes it's he needs. I think if he does want to make it to the NFL, TCU is going to give him a great chance to do that and be an all Big 12 linebacker. But sometimes kids don't, sometimes they don't look too far back on things. So I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if Texas Tech rules this kid in. I still think TCU is a slight favorite here, though. What would Dakota Allen bring to this class? So they already have a great linebacker in Jimmy Swain. How much more would this solidify that position?
Well, clearly you don't want to say you're done getting linebackers because you've got so many good guys out there. We'll talk about Malik Jefferson here in a second, but so many other good linebackers coming down the pipeline. But linebackers are basically they're the quarterback of the defense. You can't have too many good ones. You can't.
Especially Gary Patterson's defense.
Yeah. When you only have two linebackers out on the field at one time, you really need to get your best athletes out there as much as possible. So I do think he comes in and provides another little bit of athleticism, another shot and maybe just a shot in the arm of recruiting itself. We saw that with Ty Barrett. A bunch of kids are talking about, man, I saw Ty Barrett committed. Now we're looking at TC a little bit more because he's apparently really active on Twitter. And the kids love that. The kids across the nation are following that and seeing that. So that's just building TCU's brand a little bit more.
Now, TCU's gotten out front on a few big-time 2015 recruits. It sounds crazy we're already talking about 2015 guys who will be juniors this season, but I think I say 3 or 4 guys that I really want to talk about. Kendall Sheffield, defensive back, Fort Bend, Marshall, Texas. I think he's a guy who you could touch on this here in a second, but he's visiting sometime soon. Dalen Mack has visited. Larry Pryor, one of the best safeties really in the nation out of Sulphur Springs, Texas. He likes TCU. He was here several times last season for games. And I just drew a blank on the 4th guy I wanted to talk about. But
we had Braden Smith on the list earlier, but it's
Braden Smith, the 2014 guy.
Yeah.
Who I think that's going to come down, just on a side note, I think that's going to come down to Alabama and TCU.
Yeah.
His sister goes to TCU. If they were able to get him, that would be huge.
Yeah.
Going back to these 2015 guys, who have you really seen? And Malik Jefferson, linebacker, out of Mesquite Poteet. Mesquite Poteet. Out of those 4 guys, where do you think TCU stands with those guys? Those are some of the best prospects in the country for the 2015 class.
Yeah, I see these guys and looking at what they're all Texas guys, so they know about TCU. They know what the defense they're putting out. They know what we have here. So I think TCU's in a good position with each of them. I think they're different. I think these are the kind of guys that are gonna listen to what's out there. Maybe hear, oh, hey, UT's calling. Uh-oh, we see everyone at Walmart buying UT shirts, so maybe we want to get in on
To
that.
have TCU early, this early in the process, to the point where they were sophomores in high school and seriously considering TCU as some of their top schools, I think that's a good thing for TCU, especially since they don't have that T-shirt factor, for lack of better word. I mean,
Yeah, it is, and they're a T-shirt factory. So getting in on them early and going out and scouting them and bringing them into camps and getting them in on campus and seeing all the new facilities, that cryo dome that gets people down to negative 200 degrees or something like that. Getting people in that and just seeing how things are going and seeing how excited TCU is to be in the Big 12 and getting all this great fan support like we're seeing out here today at Dutchess and people rocking the purple everywhere. I get kind of weird out now. I'm like walking through Waxahachie. I see people wearing TCU. You're like, oh, hey, you must have gone to TCU. It's like, no, man, I just was on campus and I'm like 12.
I
still
think
thinking
a
about
lot
TCU
of
now.
it is expanding the base because these kids have grown up their entire lives either rooting for Oklahoma or Texas A&M. TCU was not a factor on really any college football scene since 1930, and I don't think any recruits out there were around for then or really care about what was going
They're probably
on.
out of eligibility if they were around in 1930.
Yeah.
Looking at
A few
what
years
TCU
over,
did.
NCAA is still going to review it on a couple cases. Dalen Mack will probably be a top 10 prospect nationally. Defensive tackle out of Gladewater. TCU, I think, was his first offer. He was one of his first offers. He really was a standout at the Rivals Challenge or probably the Rivals Underclassmen Challenge,
camp,
and
yeah.
also the camp in March too. Now Billy, he's no prophet, but he tends to have some pretty prophetic dreams. He dreamed. Let me get this straight.
Am I going to do this or are you going to do this? Is it
Well,
my story?
I'll
Can I
flip
tell the story?
I'll start out the good,
Okay, all right.
I'll give the good news first.
Okay.
Billy dreamt a couple months ago that Dalen Mack committed to TCU.
Yeah.
Now, I'll let you take this wonderful story from here.
Yeah, okay. So if you don't think I don't think about this TCU recruiting all the time, I was dead asleep, had a dream where Dalen Mack was in fact a Horned Frog playing in a game for TCU, and then suddenly turned into a dinosaur, and then started eating all the other players and the fans. And then I woke up when he bit my arm. That's when I woke up from the dream. So
the views and dreams of Purple Menace's
if
staff
you
do not represent the views of Billy Wessels' employer. So please don't pin this on me.
Right, but so I'm saying, if my dream comes true, look out for Dalen Mack in purple, and also don't go to that game. I don't remember which one. I think it might have been the UT game that year. Just don't go to that one. Maybe sit that one at home, watch it out on Longhorn Network or something.
And with that, I think we're about to be shuffled out of the back patio.
This might be our last episode live at
We've just lost
Dutchess.
our sponsorship with Dutchess. But seriously, we do appreciate anyone out there listening, especially probably who's not family or friends who's out there listening.
But really, big ups to family and friends. My dad and my brother,
Exactly.
BJ here, has got the headphones on, working at the computer right now. Dad got here an hour early. Him and BJ are setting up the computer and all these wires, and I have no idea where any of them go. I know where the power cord is. That's about it.
Me and Billy, a couple weeks ago, we discussed starting the podcast, and we were just going to talk into our iPhones. I think this is a step up.
Yeah, now we got microphones and headphones, and we got like 3 laptops in front of us and an iPad. We're all ready to go with this.
We don't know how to work half of it.
No.
Okay.
No, and we know how to do enough to get this thing on iTunes, and we're happy that you were able to join us in the first inaugural Purple Menace podcast. I know it's redundant, but that's how supportive and appreciative we are of you guys.
Check us out. This is obviously free. We are a subscription-based site. You can try us free for 7 days. We give you the inside scoop on recruiting news, team news,
And my dreams.
and your dreams. Of course, I think that might have scared Frogman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a message board to really talk TCU football, a lot of TCU fans, we're the spot. Looking for inside news, news you probably won't get anywhere else. I mean, purpleminutes.com is the place to be. Billy Wessels take over as publisher this month.
Yeah, as of August 1st. So if you got any complaints, I'm the one you want to complain to.
Please forward them all to him.
At Billy Wessels on Twitter. At TCU_rivals. That's our Twitter.
Yep.
I sound real like I know what I'm doing.
And at Ryan Osborne PM, and I promise you, it's just not nighttime tweets.
Yeah, you should change that or not change that. Maybe PM Ryan Osborne. I don't know.
But every Thursday night, Dutch's back patio. Come in here.
8 p.m.
8 p.m. each week, and if you want to sit in here and talk football with us, you're welcome to.
We got a third microphone here waiting for people.
We want it to be interactive. We want you to join the conversation. So, for Billy Wessels, this is Ryan Osborne. We will see you next week.